Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the F4L Headquarters Podcast. I am your host with the most, the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens, here to welcome you back to the place that we've been welcoming people to for 3 years already. Can you believe that? 3 years. Well, first and foremost, give yourselves a round of applause for tuning in to the F4L Headquarters Podcast. Yes, sir. It has been quite a journey here. You know, when I look back at the last 3 years doing this podcast, I look back to why I began it in the first place, and I look back to where I hope it will go, and the amazing things that we've already experienced it do, and also the things we hope it continues to do. On this show, we have welcomed many people on the show. Everything from the entertainment world to the sports world, to the music world, to the literary world, and it's been also everyday people like you and I. And what's amazing, well, everyone's amazing, no matter what they do. I say you and I, and I realize that I've been blessed to be surrounded by so many amazing people in my lifetime. A lot of that comes from the work ethic and the respect that I have commanded over the years. It's how I treat others. It's the fact that I act as a leader and not a follower. It's the fact that I have a work ethic that is not like others. It's the fact that I'm honest. Sometimes brutally honest. I think that a lot of the times that sometimes that can get me in trouble on this show, or in general, because I am honest. And one of the things that I really strived upon early on was when this show started in 2020, I was tired of everyone complaining about what they couldn't do and all of the woe is me and how horrible things are. I want to take you guys into perspective. I'm someone who's worked a long time in various different fields over the years. I've achieved becoming a professional wrestler. I've done that. I worked in the film world. I worked in the human services field. I worked in the sports field. So there are many things I've done over the years. YouTube and, running shows, writing, you name it, I've been doing it. And one of the things that I absolutely can't stand is people who just kind of like to complain about things and not do anything about it. Or people who aren't appreciative for the things that they have. This is June, first and foremost. So, by the way, quick shout out to all the dads out there. I did have a Mother's Day special, so hopefully the mothers all had their great month last month. But this month is June, and this is the dad's turn. This is the Father's Day month, and I got to tell you that one of the most proudest things of my lifetime that I am the most proud of. I've won multiple martial art tournaments. I've won multiple titles in wrestling, both professional and amateur. I've won multiple trophies for various things in sports. I've been acknowledged for numerous of my supports for, human services, anti-bullying, and like recently I did the commencement speech for my old high school graduation class, for the current graduation class, but my old high school had me come back and as the guest speaker to address the students of tomorrow. And, all of that. My most proudest thing that I'm most proud of being a dad. Having helped raise two amazing teenagers who are now young adults. My daughter is going to be 22 in July. Next month, my daughter is going to be 22. And then in November, the other half of Jazz and Son's dream matches, Sean Awesome, he's going to be 21 in November. And when we started Dream Matches, he was 11 years old, folks. Can you believe that? That's how long we've been doing Dream Masters for those people out there who are counting. And it's been an amazing journey to do. But one of the things I am the most proud of is the fact that we have had, when I started this podcast, because I was tired of everyone complaining about having to stay at home with their families, or, what else are we going to do? Oh, no. But you know what? Being someone who was always on the road working in wrestling or entertainment or whatever, I was forced to stay at home and work from home. And while I was at home, I had, I said, you know what? Since I got to be at home anyway, I might as well see what's going on in the world. And I don't believe in the whole Facebook thing. As people know, I'm not on Facebook, spoiler alert. Because I don't find it to be... I know a lot of people do. I'm not hating on people who do use Facebook. It's just, I want real connections with people. I enjoy real people. I enjoy my time with the people who are important to me. But I'm also about, reaching out and meeting new people and, being able to celebrate other people's success and helping others succeed. And I went to Instagram, and on Instagram, I was amazed to see so many amazing people rise to the occasion and not let, when everyone else in the world weren't wanting or stopped working on their goals and dreams, these people continued going. These people strive to go forward and achieve. And in the last 3 years, we have had some of these amazing people on the show. And I've been blessed to have that. And, first and foremost, let's give a big hand to everyone who took time in the effort to come on the F4L Headquarters Podcast. Because when I reach out to people, number one, I feel it's awkward for me to reach out to people, if I'm being honest. This show is going to be all completely honest, as it always is. And I'm going to be candid. And I'm going to tell you, if you think that it's easy for me to say, hey, would you like to come on my podcast? You don't know me very well. Because I personally, as much as I really enjoy helping others, and as much as I enjoy meeting people and talking to people, reaching out to people to ask them, hey, how would you like to come on this radio show or this podcast that is going to be heard in places all over the world? How does that sound if I bring you on my show to talk for a few? I got to tell you, I always feel awkward inviting people on the podcast, if I'm going to tell you the truth. And it's not because I don't enjoy talking to people. I always do. It's because I feel that, to me, it's about helping them get over and helping them get their word out there. But I don't know. I always want to make sure when people come on the podcast, they feel welcome. They feel at ease. They feel, this is like a second home, the F4L Headquarters Podcast. It's more than a podcast as much as a feel for what the F4L Headquarters would be if it was a real thing. And those people who don't know what the F4L Headquarters is, as I've talked about before, anyone who I personally live the F4L way, which is with love, care, and compassion, understanding, respect for each other's differences. That's me. I have to say a lot of the people I do have on the show, they tend to be the same kind of a mindset. They kind of, respect a lot of those things, and they have a lot of those things. But the other thing about it is, it's a way of life, right? It's a choice. It's a way of being. It's also the family atmosphere. So anyone who I view to live and be in the, quote, F4L are family to me. They're like blood. They are my blood. When I call someone the F4L, and when you are at that level and being acknowledged as an F4L member or an F4L brother or a sister, you're family to me. You're not just a friend, or you're not just an acquaintance, or you're not just a regular person. You are a brother or a sister, and I will give everything I can to help you, and I am there for you. And over the years, we've had some amazing people on the show. Amazing. And, everyone from my own wife, my kids have been on the show here and there. But it's also been about the amazing new people that have taken the time out of their schedule. And I'm going to talk about a few of them, probably going to make them blush or whatever. But today's about really celebrating the 3 years of what our show's done and the lives we've touched and where they are now and how things have changed. And also, who is coming back, who I can already tell you is coming back, and who we just kind of lost contact. That's okay. It happens. And who we're hoping to come for the first time. So first and foremost, I think if we're going to really turn back the clocks and look at the journey to the F4L Headquarters Podcast. One of the first things is not all of the shows have a guest like this one. Sometimes it's just me talking like I am now, and usually it has to do with something pertinent. A lot of the times it's to celebrate something, to announce something, to incorporate something. But a lot of the times it is to shout out people and to bring recognition to real life people who are busting their tails to achieve their goals. You see, social media didn't exist when I was growing into becoming who I am. And if I can do something, use my voice and use my, whatever I have, whatever you want to call it, to help others, then why wouldn't I do that? It would seem selfish if I just kept all that to myself. So here we are. So let's go back to the very first guest. We're going to go through the ups and the downs of these shows. One of the things is, for those people who don't know, we've had 3 different. I guess first and foremost, we should talk about the 3. Providers of this show, or the what do they call it? The technology we use for this show, the administrators, so to speak. Basically the software we use to the show. We've evolved over the years. What we started out as is the Anchor, podcast server. That worked for a short amount of time, but then, after a while, my wife, who, by the way, spoiler alert, my wife had a podcast before I did, and I first got permission from her in 2020. When I thought about doing this show, I wanted to get her permission first because I feel like the podcast thing was always kind of her thing. Her thing was the radio and the podcast. Where me, I'm more comfortable in front of a camera or in front of a ring, and YouTube was something I was more comfortable with. But when everyone else was complaining and whining and crying, I said, you know what, maybe I'll do a podcast and I'll share some wisdom and help people see that the world's not as bad as they think it is, that there's amazing people out there who are doing amazing things every day. Just do something that these people are doing. And also giving people tips on how they can achieve instead of whining and crying about what you can't do at the moment. I mean, whining and crying isn't going to give you anything except for, a wet napkin. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was my dad joke of the day. I hope you guys enjoyed that. All right. Okay. But anyway, but on a serious note, it's evolved over that time. So it started out as an Anchor, and then we switched over to using my wife's podcast server, who she used to use. Now, for the record, my wife doesn't do her podcast much anymore. Things change, and just, she has different things going on. She had the Squared Circle Cafe podcast, the original Squared Circle Cafe podcast, that her and her co-host and, her own F4L of sorts, Jeremy and JC and Beth the Page, all were part of. Actually, fun fact, I was a guest on the show many years ago, and that's how I, would kind of cement my wife, or kind of would, get to know my wife more. And actually, it was on my wife's podcast I officially asked her to marry me. Spoiler alert. And yes, I believe you can still find that show on iTunes where I proposed to my wife live on the air. Squared Circle Cafe podcast would have been in August of 2014, I want to say, because that was when I officially proposed to her. Because sometimes in life, you need to go around the world, to find out the person you were supposed to be with was in front of you the whole time. And that's honestly the story of our lives. So that's kind of where that comes from. But, in 2020, I got her permission. And after, I first started with the Anchor. And then, she suggested her old software, which was Blog Talk Radio, who I use for, all honesty, I was using them up until recently. But what happened was the show was growing. People were enjoying it. We had amazing people on. One of the technical issues with the early days was that, with the Anchor, having guests on was kind of a nightmare because they would call in, the sound would never really match up. It wasn't fun. We tried having people on, and it was kind of rough. And since then, we got the Blog Talk Radio that has an actual guest call-in feature, which made life a lot easier. So really, when I look at what the F4L Headquarters is and really began is kind of right in those shows when we first got the Blog Talk Radio. And of course, all of that was already on Spotify. One of the first things I did was hook up with Spotify, and all of those old shows you could find on Spotify under the F4L Headquarters Podcast. Go figure. And actually, after doing that for a long time, the people were really enjoying it. And, I was still working on numerous things in life. I was working, as talent relations and guest services and helping people do this, that, and the other thing. I was working on various other avenues of things. And then I decided to make the podcast something more, something more enjoyable and do a lot more with. And fortunately, that's when I got for a little while, I got sidetracked working on a project that I'm no longer part of. So that kind of put a damper in a lot of what this show was going to be. But it's going to be that again, because now I'm focused back on it again. In all honesty, that's why we didn't celebrate in April, when we actually had our official 3 years of doing this show. And it's just an amazing time to look back at on, those early flubs. But then when we got the Blog Talk Radio, most of the time it was pretty good. One of the things I can tell you is that it was amazing how it seemed to be kind of touchy-feely who it wanted to work for and when. So Blog Talk Radio, you would have to set up a time when you wanted to do it, and then the guests would call in at that time, and you would have to give them the call-in number and things like that, which was awesome. And hey, we did that show for a long time that way. And the very first guest, since redoing it on that format, was Michael Fishman, of all people. Michael Fishman, actor, producer, writer, fellow awesome dad, good guy, F4L brother from Hollywood, California. Michael Fishman, who you guys might know better as DJ on Roseanne, I have gone to know as just the real Michael Fishman, who is a genuine human being who knows what it's like to be a human, first of all. He's an awesome dad. He's all like myself. We have had a similar past in the sense that we have both struggled in certain aspects. We've both had loss at a young age. Were forced to kind of grow up early as far as that goes. And Michael Fishman was the first guest on the show. He didn't have a lot of time in the early days because at the time he was working on the Connors, which was huge. The Connors was on television. He was working on there, reprising the role. The Connors, by the way, is still on TV. Michael Fishman no longer part of the show. But he's working on his own independent avenues. And he's still doing his dad's stuff. He's doing he's always working hard and striving for something more. Also very philosophical, very Very intellectual as well. I really enjoy talking with Michael Fishman. Has a wealth of knowledge. And as I said, he knows what it's like to struggle, even though he's worked in Hollywood. He knows what those things are. But also, on top of that, he's an awesome dad, and he's an awesome human being. He's been on the show a couple times, actually, Michael Fishman. And I can tell you this. And before you go asking, well, what's going on now? The good news is I've talked to Michael Fishman, and we are planning on bringing him back. We just try to work on a time. And I got to let you know that a lot of these people I'm saying are people who we've had on the show I've already reached out to and are planning on coming back. Michael Fishman is someone who's coming back to talk about being a dad. And I got to be honest with you, I'm going to try to get that in as hard. I'm going to really try hard to see if we can work out a time to get him in June to celebrate fatherhood and being one of the best dads out there. Having him as part of that celebration. But Michael Fishman's one of those people who, is always, gracious with his time to come on. He did the 14 questions event of the F4 of the, thing here. Excuse me as I drink my water. But Michael Fishman is, very knowledgeable. We had a great conversation every time he's been on the show. And he's going to be coming on again once we find that time. Once he gets a window to come on here and talk about what things have changed. Before, last time we had him on the show, he was literally getting ready to go to set. I believe he was getting ready to go to set when we talked to him last. And, obviously not being on the show anymore. Interesting to see where he's doing now. And if you remember, Michael Fishman, who was knowledgeable of him being a wrestler on our show, our YouTube show. By the way, spoiler alert, Michael Fishman is coming back to Icons of the F4L as well. Spoiler alert. It's amazing how the two ventures blend together sometimes. Yeah, but Michael Fishman, we're bringing him back to both the F4L Headquarters Podcast here and also Icons of the F4L, which, oddly enough, this podcast is going to be heard on YouTube, also on the same channel there. His character is going to be returning. So, fun fact, that's coming, and we always look forward to having him on. For, like I said, one of the nicest human beings. Actually, everyone who's been on the show has been amazing, and he really fits in the thing. And I wonder if he'd be willing to admit the fact that he is F4L after all these years. That'd be interesting. All right, so. Michael Fishman will be coming back. Other people who we had on the show, fellow bodybuilders, and it's a small world, right? We had JoJo the bodybuilder on probably early on, right? We just started this show. And I got to tell you the story about, I got to tell you, first and foremost, when I talk to you guys how awkward I feel when I reach out to people to say, hey, how would you like to be a guest on the show? JoJo the bodybuilder was one of those people, much like Jaden Brooks, who we've had on the show. Actually, recently we've had Jaden Brooks on the All New podcast. Now, JoJo and Michael Fishman haven't been on since we've redone this, but I'm sure they're going to do fine. They're pros. But JoJo the bodybuilder, when we first had him on the show, before that, he's not changed. He's still a hardworking, dedicated young man who has goals and drive. He still is a workhorse. He's still on our Icons of the F4L YouTube show. And he's still, doing all kinds of amazing things. Now, the last time JoJo was on the show, it goes to show how much of a small world it is. In between JoJo's appearance. Now, JoJo's been on here once by himself, I believe. Maybe twice. I know once for sure. The second time, however, he came back on the show with a person who we come to find out is his mentor and leader on the outside, was Philip Ricardo Jr., the natural bodybuilding legend himself, who was a guest on our show a year ago. Coming up a year is Philip Ricardo Jr. What was fun was when we had Philip Ricardo Jr. on the show, we come to find out that he not only knows JoJo the bodybuilder, he helped train him. And what a small world it is. The two amazing people, different generations or whatever, could find each other. In all honesty, it makes the most sense. Philip Ricardo Jr. we had on the show, very knowledgeable in bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Intelligent is underrated for him. I feel like I enjoy having communications with Philip Ricardo Jr. He has such a knowledge of not only bodybuilding, just in life in general. He's such a spiritual individual, which I respect tremendously. And the fact of the matter is even though he is a natural bodybuilding champion and he sees all that, he also acknowledges the fact that he also indulges in real life too. He knows wrestlers. He enjoys the fact that he was game to become part of our show. I think originally, as he said on the show, he thought it was going to be a joke until he saw himself on, built in a wrestling form on the video game format. And if you guys remember, we had him debut during our tag team tournament we're going to be having again this year. Things have changed a little bit now, but Philip Ricardo Jr. made his debut last year, teaming with JoJo the Bodybuilder, who didn't know that Philip was joining him as a team. And I'm not 100% certain JoJo even knew that Philip was on the show. But small world goes, and there you have it. And then we had both Philip and JoJo on the show together, and we did a watch-along, which the watch-alongs are a lot of fun. They're always enjoyable, and I always find it amazing to hear different people's opinions on what they're seeing, what they're hearing at the same time. And we are planning on doing another one of those, but now with this new format, which is going to be even better, we're going to have video to go along with it. So not only will we be able to hear your, reactions, we'll see everyone's individual reactions, which is going to be amazing. And I look forward to that. But both Philip and JoJo were part of the same show. We did the watch along with the Legends, was the name of their tag team. And it was amazing listening to their kind of camaraderie. And they were just getting ready to go to a bodybuilding competition, which, by the way, spoiler alert, they both did really well in. JoJo smashed it and won again. And Philip Ricardo Jr. just kind of took that stage and made it his own and, does what he does. And Philip Ricardo is still in amazing shape. And I got to say, I just recently finished watching the documentary he did. Called, hold on one second, I'm going to tell you the name of the show that he did. It was an amazing show. Really enjoyed it. It's actually available on Amazon Prime if you guys are interested. It's also available on Hulu. I'm not on Hulu, on Netflix as well. One second. I shall tell you. Because I want to make sure you guys see this documentary. He did talk about it on the show a little bit, and I think that you guys should really see this show, especially if you're a bodybuilder. If you're someone who is serious about bodybuilding or any of that, I really do think you owe it to yourself to watch this show. It's a documentary. It's not a show. It's a movie, documentary. It was about bodybuilding, of all things. Of course it is, because Philip Ricardo Jr. is one. It's called Generation Iron Natty for Life, is what it's called. And Philip Ricardo Jr. is one of the many, what we call in wrestling, talking heads. A talking head in wrestling is someone who talks usually as a person of knowledge of a certain thing or a storyteller, someone who adds, one of the interviewers, or interviewees, I should say. That's what Philip does in the show, or movie. And it's a great documentary. Generations for Life, Natty for Life, it's called. And again, one of the nicest human beings you'll meet, one of the most genuine. And Philip and JoJo had a great camaraderie. Spoiler alert, again, recently I come to find out they're not working together anymore, as JoJo is returned with no pun intended, with a vengeance to YouTube, which I knew that JoJo did anyway. And I guess he's going to do things on his own, which is fine. That happens in life and times. Both people are still part of our YouTube show. maybe go on separate avenues, just because, JoJo on our show is one of the very first the first Grand Slam champion on our show. And what's amazing is, being able to give JoJo the feedback before about the amazing lives that he has impacted on being on our show. Jaden is the same thing. And a lot of the other people we've had on our show during the watch-alongs, I really take that time to appreciate and thank them for being part of the show, because we get feedback from fans all over the place about what our superstars who we make using a wrestling show on YouTube game, what they really mean to real-life people. And JoJo the Bodybuilder has contributed and been someone who a lot of people will say by name who has inspired them to do amazing things. And in my years in knowing JoJo, since 2020, I want to say, in all of our communications, he's just continued becoming even bigger, literally and figuratively. And he continues to be wise and continues to be smart. He has great work ethic, great mindset, business sense. And he's back on YouTube. His brother Noah, by the way, one of the most talented musicians I've ever seen, but also he's got a personality. I can't wait to, I know that JoJo is planning on coming back to the podcast at some point. We're working on him, and Philip Ricardo Jr. coming back to the podcast. Probably not together, but separate maybe. But also, I'm going to see if I can get Noah, JoJo's older brother, who's a musician, by the way, on the show. He's got quite a personality, and he's like I said, very talented musician. And when he does the YouTube videos with JoJo lights up, which is amazing to see, that personality, that you can work out and have fun. But also his brother has that real-life older brother feel, because he is, and they get along so well, you can see. And he's got a great sense of humor. I really enjoy watching the two brothers interact, because, all honesty, being someone who's a family guy like me, family is important. And in my years, getting to know his dad and his, the whole group, the very great family, the JoJo's family, love their family. And eventually, we were going to have JoJo and his family be part of the very first ever Jazz and Friends Expo, which, down the road we do still plan on doing. It's just right now, one of the things that we had issues with was the venue double booked. I can never believe that. Unfortunately, the timing didn't work out for JoJo and his family. But then, the venue that we had that was supposed to be set in stone, there was something about someone got hired in between when we had made the original deal, and didn't tell the owner that they started a basketball tournament and booked it for the weekend of what was supposed to be the weekend of our event. So that's kind of what happened with that, double booking. And we're still planning on having that event, the celebrity basketball game. It's just, unfortunately, the venue double booked, and we didn't have a place to play the basketball. We also plan on having, in the fall, a music festival. JoJo's brother and his dad are both musicians. Maybe we can have them for that. Doesn't hurt. A lot of other musicians we'd like to have at the music festival as well. But anyway, we'll go on to that later. But, they'll be back. JoJo will be back on the show eventually, and he's just gotten bigger and stronger. And, again, there are a lot of people currently who are doing what JoJo did. And I really think that it's a good idea for people who are currently into the whole fitness scene now to go and research and look at JoJo the Bodybuilder, what he did, paving the way for a lot of these people who are doing it now. I respect all of them for what they do and what they're continuing to do, but if you're going to say that someone started the trend, or someone that, started the kind of the mindset or the thing, you have to look at JoJo the Bodybuilder. There are a lot of people out there who claim to be bodybuilders, or they claim to be fitness kind of people, but they have no... I don't know if they know what their end goal is. JoJo was very clear. I want to be Mr. Olympia. I want to be I want to win the Arnold Classic. I want to win this, that, and the other thing. He became Mr. Olympia. He won that. And there's probably going to be, and someday he'll win pretty much everything else that he wants to achieve, because that's who JoJo the bodybuilder is. On the other side of JoJo, we got Jaden Brooks, who we just had on the show not long ago. And a lot of people don't remember, we had both Jaden and Connor, who way back in the day were both on the show. I haven't talked about Connor and Jaden in the same breath, except for when we did the podcast in a while. But the reality is this: I have respect for everyone, including Connor. Connor, one of the things that Connor, didn't want, he doesn't want people to think that what he was doing on YouTube is the same thing what I do. So that's why he asked me not shout him out. Because he didn't want people to confuse what I do on the YouTube show with what he does, which I respect. I get that. But Connor, honestly, is one of the most hardworking, dedicated, and also, hands down, one of the epitome of what an F4L is. And when I say F4L, he is Jaden's F4L brother. That is clear. It is there. And again, I think that is, it's clear, and that's an amazing thing to see. And Jaden is always, Jaden has the record right now, by the way, for being on their podcast the most as of right now. The guest who's come back more than once has been Jaden Brooks. Not only has he been on individually, I think 3 times, he's also been part of pretty much every one of the watch-alongs we've done. The first one was interesting. He and Connor watched, and also JoJo Sebastian, if you guys remember him. We had him on a show way back in the day, too. Model JoJo Sebastian, who was on the show a couple times. And he would go on to work on the YouTube show with me for a little while. And then, of course, I was, getting burnt out a little bit, I guess, with it, and frustrated that, not him, it wasn't anything to do with JoJo and Sebastian at all. It was more to do with the fact that it didn't feel like anyone else who was, part of the show or respected the show or what we did for them. So, and then JoJo since has left both Hollywood Entertainment, all that, and wants to be just a regular kid. And, I respect that too. Why not? And by the way, I do still keep in contact with JoJo and everyone else who's been on the show as much as I can. So there's that. But, Jaden and Connor were part of that show. It's always fun. But two other individuals who have been on the show twice, and we're planning on bringing them back again, are 2 of the most hardest working and the toughest youth MMA fighters on the planet. And, of course, that is Henry and Jairo Mena. Let me do this correctly. Henry El Nero Mena and Jairo the Pitbull Mena, the Mena boys. And them Mena boys, who've been part of the YouTube show, who've been on this podcast twice, have been the epitome of what MMA really is. They are dedicated, they're hardworking, they're the most polite young men you'll ever meet. They've always been very respectful on this show. In interaction with them, very respectful, very honorable. They are fun to talk to, and we look forward to having both of them back here again. And since then, both of them, the last time they were on the show was literally a year ago today. Yeah, it was a year ago, just before a year ago today. They were both on the show because they were on when we were talking about doing the Open MMA tournament that we were going to do. And all honesty, the reason why it's in June is because it's Jairo's birthday month. Spoiler alert. And it was during that's when we decided that was when the month was going to be, during Jairo's birthday. And by the way, spoiler alert, anyone who watched the Open MMA tournament we had, Jairo the Pitbull Mena won this year. Last year he came in second to last. This year he took the whole thing. Good for him. Goes to show you that people grow in age and grow in time, and the work ethic is there. I'm not going to say that the Adeles didn't put up a fight in the tournament. They definitely earned their spot as being the alphas of MMA, of youth MMA. But the Menu Boys hung in there with them, along with the newer kind of group that we have that we'll talk about, them coming in. But what an amazing job by the Menu Boys in real life and on our show. And we look forward to having them back on the show. Both Henry and Hyro both celebrated their birthdays since now. And a big happy birthday to them again. But we look forward to having them back on the show again because they're two of the most amazing young men. They're always willing to work hard. They put the work ethic in and just enjoyable to talk to. The most respectful young men. They have a wealth of knowledge. They're willing to listen to feedback and become better. In all honesty, these two kids could be the future and headline any UFC main event in the future. I believe that. And what makes, and like I say on the YouTube show, when I'm calling them matches, one of the things that they continue doing is adding new skills to their arsenal. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just the epitome of it. They also do, Muay Thai. They're also doing boxing. You name it, they're in there, fighting into it. And you know what? That helps make you become a better fighter when you have a well-rounded skill set, if we're being fair. So, great for them. And they've been on the show twice. And we look forward to having them on again. Hopefully, what would be amazing is having like a watch-along with the Menu Boys and some of the other people in that kind of division. That would be interesting to see what would happen. Also, sounds like it would be a lot of interesting work too, but again, something I'm looking forward to. And again, it's been an amazing time having them on here. What's interesting is that Henry and Hyro have been on here twice. Henry's twice, Hyro once, and again, always enjoyable to talk to. And I think recently they said they were shy. They have nothing to be shy of on this show because they have the respect of everyone who's listening to this podcast because they have commanded it. So they can always be free to be themselves and never going to be judged on this show, nor anyone who comes on the show is going to be judged ever, point blank, because they've earned their spot on this show. So there's that. And because anyone can be here and be themselves anytime, anyway. So anyway. Getting back to the swing of things. So the Menu Boys, but also last year we welcomed a new UFC fighter, a new MMA competitor, and his mom for the first time. It was Grayson the Super Duck Russell and Angela Russell, the Russells in general, out of Georgia. And again, very polite, very hardworking. It was great having that kind of... It was great having, the dynamic of a mother and a son team talking about what MMA means to them. Grayson, who is one of the best pure strikers in wrestling, is also, really he started wrestling to become a better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he's even said how much it's worked and helped him in the long run. I think Grayson is one of the best pure strikers. And when I say a striker, I mean a wrestler who is quick for taking down and you really... Before you blink an eye, you're already on the mat. That's something that is rare in most fighters, most rare in a wrestler. All honesty, people who have that are kind of like Kurt Angle, who's an Olympic gold medalist, and guess what? In wrestling. Famously, he won his gold medal in Atlanta with a broken neck, famously and allegedly. So there's that. Grayson does not have a broken neck. He's working hard. Recently, he and his family had a very hard time where just in the worst possible time, and they had a horrendous house fire. Being someone who's lived through one of those, it's never easy, but we all send our thoughts and prayers and our love to the Russells. Grayson and his mom and his dad, some of the best people out there. And it was great to see that so many people shared and took time to share the love with them. Because they're a tremendous family, hardworking, dedicated, and Grayson's a nice young guy. And we're going to have to get him on the show again eventually. Again, being busy, being at the best at the game, it's hard to find time to come on the podcast. I get that all too well. But, we always keep in our thoughts and keep his name mentioned because they've earned it on here. I think that was one of the first times also live on the air I mentioned becoming part of the wrestling show while they were guests on the show. And that was amazing because no sooner did they agree to that, they were on their show, and Grayson almost immediate, actually it was his debut, he won the Dream Masters BA Championship, and his mom won the female BA Championship. On the same night, they both debuted, both in the Dream Warrior side of things for his mom, Angela Russell, and Grayson under the Dream Masters banner. Grayson, in the meantime, and his mom, both still part of our YouTube show. The women have their own show, Dream Warriors, which I got to be honest with you guys, we are, really trying to settle in the timing down. There's going to be 2 shows for the Dream Masters and the Dream Warriors. Again, the schedule should be the 4th and the 14th for the Dream Masters, and the 9th and the 16th for the Dream Warriors. The 24th of the month will be when the final show of the month will happen, and that will feature both brands on one big show. Kind of picture it as like the big pay-per-view, if you would, for the end of the month, as a big blowout. For anything that has to happen, any final things will happen on the 24th for both the Dream Warriors and the Dream Masters, and those shows will tend to be a little longer and more matches, for the record. What else? We also had the amazing, we had people, speaking of, we talked about martial arts, we can't leave out the fact that we had the Jits Kings on the show before. They were in one of the best tournaments out there. They were both, really fun to have, liked listening to how they got their journey, how they, they see the importance of the youth of MMA and how important it is that they need to get in there. And Jits King is still doing their thing. We're happy for them and whatnot. It was great to have them on here for the time period. Also, we even featured a coffee maker because they make amazing coffee, and Dead Sled Coffee, which, by the way, I still drink the Dead Sled Coffee. I also drink all kinds of other coffee brands, and we also have the Brutalities guys who, we've tried to get them on the podcast. They're shy, but you know what? We respect them nonetheless. We always say their name because they're amazing. They make the best tea is Brutalities. But we also love our Dead Sled Coffee and our Deadly Grounds Coffee, which, by the way, I'm working on getting a hold of them so I can contact them and talk to them about coming on this podcast as well. And we're going to be making a custom a Deadly Grounds arena. Now that the arena's been fixed, we're going to have a Deadly Grounds arena being made soon, as well as the Brutalities arena. I know, the last thing you ever thought you'd see is an arena dedicated to tea. But not just any tea, Brutalities. It'll be a lot of fun. So that'll be amazing, both of those. It was nice having the gentleman from Deadly Grounds, from Dead Sled on the show before, because they do an amazing coffee. I don't know how they do what they do, but they do amazing work. It was interesting to hear their journey and how they got to where they are. And I'm sorry that I haven't seen them in a long time. Hopefully they'll be back at Monster Mania so I can get my Dead Sled fix, so to speak. So, and we always thank them because, all honesty, without them and any of the other caffeine vendor people, we wouldn't be able to do this show, or I wouldn't be able to do this show, I should say. Thank you for them. Also, we had real life people. No, as much as we enjoy having these various guests on the show, it's always nice to have regular down-to-earth people. People that I know from all over the place. Now, granted, everyone who I've mentioned, I already consider to be F4L. But these are the people who I will actually run into and see on a regular basis. People like Tim Collins, who's been on the show a few times, and we're planning on bringing him in here again as well. he's going to come on here and talk about, being a dad and stuff like that. I think we're going to work on that soon, actually, to bring him on the show to talk about that, probably within the next couple weekends. Maybe next weekend, you never know. We're going to have Tim on the show again. Tim's a guy who, he goes to a lot of conventions everywhere. He's one of our Monster Mania family members. Tim and Kim has since then been here at the official F4L Headquarters, the House of Jazz, I guess you'd say, along with Tommy, who, by the way, is one of our newest wrestlers on our show, is Tommy Collins. But it's always amazing to have, meet these people, see these people in real life and spend time with them at these shows. Tim's also, such a knowledgeable person when it comes to horror and pop culture and things like that. So it's always good to have him on. And also, to get the father instincts and the father aspects. It's always good to talk to fellow dads. And another person, from that kind of, that wavelength is Sean Foster, the horror god, who has, launched his YouTube. He announced his, return to YouTube on our show. By the way, he's still on YouTube doing his thing. Go check him out, the horror god, Sean Foster, doing amazing things. Hopefully I'll see him at the next Monster Mania event so we can bring forth to you guys in person. It would be nice. Ever since I switched over to becoming, part of the staff, I don't see them as much because I'm busy working with everybody. But the feeling is always there. They're always family no matter what wavelength you're on, whatever side of your fence you're on. But Sean Foster, an amazing young man, the horror god, loves horror movies, nice young man, has the YouTube show. Go check him out again. And Miss Lana King, we've had on the show a couple times. Not just the guys come on the show. For you guys, people are wondering, well, that's a lot of dudes on the show. And all of our men are the perfect gentlemen, let me tell you. But Angela Russell is the epitome of a tough woman. On our YouTube show, there is none tougher than the Duchess herself, Miss Lana King. Because on our show, anyone who's watched our show since her arrival, since her very first match, Miss Lana King is undefeated. And she is the current Dream Warriors social media champion. Or Telenet champion. And good luck to anyone who steps in the ring with her because she does an amazing thing. And we've had on the show a couple times our friend from Canada. Goes to show you how interesting the old vendors were, where before, I would have no issues getting her on the show a couple times. But like my friends across the pond, that was where the issues always came into play. Which Noah the Nightmare Tyndall, who was on 1.5 times. We started it and then it just didn't work. But we are planning on bringing Noah back to fix that properly. And Noah is a tremendous young man. The Duchess Lana King is a tremendous young lady out of Canada, and she's an amazing person, tough, very down to earth, but also she has a lot of focus. She's very real. She likes to remind people that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to struggle. And you know what? That is an important thing to remember once in a while, that we're all human. We all have things we're going through. It's okay to have a hard time. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be depressed. And it's okay to be yourself, no matter what it is. And the Duchess is great for reminding us of it's okay to be you. And it's okay to, have a hard time and still continue going. And we send all of our love to the Duchess. We haven't talked to her in a little while. I'm going to actually send her a thing today because it's been a little while. As we're celebrating 3 years, I wanted to, thank her as well for spending time here. And we had her as part of our Halloween episode, which was an amazing episode, where we talked about things that I don't normally get to talk about on a regular basis because they're not everything everyone wants to talk about. The Duchess was nice enough to talk about real-life hauntings of where she works. And in doing research, she is very much correct about the things that they talk about. I did research since that show, and yeah, there's a lot of going on at her theater there. It's an amazing little thing. Go check that out for those people who are into the spooky stuff. But, yeah, it was also good. What's interesting is over the years, since doing this podcast, 3 years, we've only had outside of my son, my wife, my daughter once, I've only had one other relative on the show thus far, and that was my cousin Shaheem Blue, who is an aspiring actor, musician. He's a very talented young man, but he's also blood. He's also my actual family. He's the only family I've actually had other than my wife and my kids. Planning on bringing in another one soon. I have someone who has not been on the show yet, but we look forward to having another one of our superstars on our show, but also someone who is a family relative to me, and that's KD Smooth himself. We're working on bringing him on the show to talk about, his journey. And you know what? Family is family. It is what it is. And I got to tell you guys that sometimes in life, you have to kind of pick and choose who your family is. It's the rough part of the time to say. Shaheem, his mom, his family, I have nothing but love for them. I respect them. I love them. They are they're my family. They're my Uncle George's, my cousin Michelle is my cousin George's daughter. My Uncle George, I'm all confused now. Hold on. My family is very interesting to say the least, because it's really hard to keep track of who's who in my family. My blood I'm talking about. One of the reasons why I don't deal with my family a lot is because of the fact that my family is just all over the place. Oh, no, trust me. They are really all over the place. But my Uncle George, who is my mother's brother, Michelle is his daughter, and Shaheem is her son. There you go. Now you're all confused, right? Okay. Well, anyway, that's how that worked. But you know what? That was cool, and it was enjoyable, and it was nice having him on to talk about just family stuff, his journey, his goals. He just graduated, I think. He's working and being a real person, doing real life stuff. He is on the TikTok world. I don't understand the TikTok. I'm not cool and hip. I'll be the first to admit that. I lasted all of maybe a month on TikTok. I left TikTok. No, it's too much for me. I don't get it. So I left TikTok. What else? So that was cool. But yeah, that was an interesting time. But one of the things I do want to thank Shaheem for is it's something also I've also kind of conflicted with myself on the show, where I have no problem being honest and calling people out and saying the honest truth about things when it comes to reviews or whatever else. When it comes to holding people accountable by name, my stance is this. If I talk about them, if I say their name, I feel like I'm giving them free publicity. That you're going to, maybe if you'd never heard of their name, you're going to look up their name, and now all of a sudden they're relevant enough in your life. And why waste your time looking for these people if I don't acknowledge them to begin with, because they're not worth your time? And what Shaheem did is he basically called out someone for being deceitful in the filmmaking world who I was working with at the time. On a film, and he, kind of shared some lights on the untruths that were there. And he also called him by his name because he's honest, and I love him for that. And I love that Shaheem was, part of that and was, took time to come on the show. It was really nice to have him on the show and get a family perspective, and we hope to have more family on the show eventually. As I mentioned, KD Smooth is someone we're probably going to get on here eventually. Other than my wife and my kids. We'll see who else is coming then. But, it's a very tight circle there on that. And there's a lot more F4L than there will be blood, I'll tell you that. The invitations don't go out often to some people. Let me just tell you that. I don't send them out to everybody. My cousin Michelle wants to come on the show. She's welcome to, though. My sister-in-law, or ex-sister-in-law, she's welcome to come on the show. My niece and nephew, they want to come on the show, they're welcome to. But we'll see. We'll see someday. But in the meantime, let's get back to the swing of things, get back to common things here. Let's talk about the F4L Headquarters Podcast a little bit more. Let's talk about the other people who have amazingly graced their time here. I think it's amazing, and I think it's fun to acknowledge the fact that we've had two musicians on our show, definitely different genres, right? And what was amazing is one of them I knew from my past, and the other one I just kind of started getting to know, and someone who I think didn't take long for them to get who I am, and now they're F4L brothers. They're, acknowledge the F4L thing. And that, of course, the two musicians, one of them was a former actor who I really admired his work back in the, when I first met him, he was an actor. I helped, recommend him get casted for a film that I was helping help out with casting. And then he was going to be on he was going to work on my film. But unfortunately, just, because he skyrocketed like I knew he would, we kind of lost time. But it was nice to have Christian Goodwin to come on the show. And then we got to revisit that a little bit. And you know what? Whenever someone talks about like child actors or acting in film and whatever, I really encourage people to go back and listen to Christian Goodwin's time on our show. And I can't thank him enough for coming on the show, for being so honest and truthful about those things. Because they are being someone who's worked in the film work on the other side of the camera, so to speak, right? I'm always the person who casts, or I work behind the camera. I'm the one who puts the team together, so to speak, or writes or does something on that end. I'm not the person who goes out there and actively puts myself in or acts or one of those things. But one of the things I always kind of am sensitive to, but also one of the things I believe in on a set, is to keep it like a family-like atmosphere. 100% teamwork, everyone's all in, it's a family-like, laid-back atmosphere, no stress. It makes it a better shoot. That's something I always believe. And Christian Goodwin, talked about what it was like for him growing into the film world. He wanted to be in acting, he wanted to be in the showman type of thing. He got that, he accomplished that, became one of the best actors out there. But he realized, this is going to take an impact on the other parts of my life. I'm a kid. I want to hang out and be with my friends. A lot of people who this is their goal and this is something they want to do and become a filmmaker or an actor or become the next big thing, they often forget about kind of the cause and effect of what they choose to go into. And it's great when you're getting those roles and you're getting these big things, but in the same sense, when that doesn't happen, or when you want to do other things but you can't because you have to go work on a set for 8 hours, 6 hours, or whatever it is, where your friends are going to go to the beach or have a good time, and you can't do those things because you got to, quote, work. And child acting is something that is a very interesting thing, because you could be 9 months old in work and ultimately bring in the money, more money than your parents who work, X amount of, hours and years for. And that's hard for people to understand. But it's also important to realize that when your goal is to become an actor and become big at acting, is kind of what happens to your social life. There isn't one anymore, because your life revolves around acting. Listen to how Christian talks about having to travel back and forth from New York to Boston, or traveling from, Boston or New York, then going to California. It's just, it's the journey that goes back. And then ultimately decided to leave it all behind so he can, work on music and just be himself and spend time with his family and his friends and play hockey. Christian Goodwin is an amazing example of how you can want something, work for it, and then, let me try this. And he puts everything into whatever it is, and you got to respect that about him. He wanted to go into acting. He became that, did well at that. He wanted to go into hockey. One of the best hockey players out there got injured. Okay, what do I do now? Well, now I can do music. And he's talented at that. And he does like the hip hop and the rap stuff. Amazing stuff. I love it. You know what? And I'm going to be the first to admit I'm not overly huge on rap. Christian Goodwin's raps, I understand them. The music speaks volumes. It actually, used a lot of words and terminology that I understand. We grew up in the same neighborhoods almost, in the same demographic area. So Christian Goodwin, all the honesty, lived not far away from where I was. And I have a lot of respect for him and his mom, one of my favorite people out there as well. So shout out to Christian Goodwin, who we have to come back on the show again, because we only had him on once, but it was an amazing time where he was just, we just had him on to catch up, and we talked about his music career. And since then, he's already released more music, and he's also tremendous at that. So we respect Christian. I think he's also, congratulations as well. He has since graduated from college, so congratulations to him there too. But Christian's good, and it was always good to have him on there. And also, in addition to Christian Goodwin, we also had another musician, an up-and-coming superstar, and one of my newest F4L brothers, and that, of course, is the incomparable Walker Campbell. And Walker Campbell is, another person who, another young man who I kind of found out in, kind of got the twinkling things on YouTube, as I still am on YouTube. I am one of the originals on the old school of YouTube because of the jazz fitness stuff. I started out on YouTube when YouTube was kind of new. The wrestling promoters put my early stuff out on YouTube. So when I was starting out on YouTube, YouTube was kind of still its infancy stage. And, a lot of those people who I started out with on YouTube, even though they're in different genres, I'm still pretty close to, and I still talk to on a regular basis when I can. Some of them chose to leave YouTube and don't do it as much because they got burnt out really bad for various different reasons. Others still do the YouTube and do really well, and they've gone on to skyrocket in the music world or whatever the case may be. Walker Campbell, what's amazing about him, as it says on our YouTube show now, he is the total package, Walker Campbell, because Walker doesn't fit any kind of a set mold. He is just himself. He's not just a musician, not just an actor, not just an athlete, not just a kid, not just a model. He is everything. He's just the total package. And I can't say enough awesome things about Walker. Him and his mom, literally two of my favorite people to talk to and deal with. And it's so much so since, when I was working on a recent project, I said, well, when it comes to music, when it comes to getting that aspect done, there is someone who we need to bring in. And I immediately thought of Walker Campbell, because this is someone who I believe a lot in, and I still believe in Walker. And we always have an open policy here, and eventually Walker will find his way walking back here again, I'm sure. Walker is again on our YouTube show and done an amazing job on that. And once in a while, they actually acknowledge the fact that not only do they acknowledge the fact they're wrestlers, but he and his mother both enjoy watching the matches on YouTube. So that's enjoyable to see. Again, a very talented young man, and really one of the modern day musical pioneers, and still continues to remind people that you can go on one place and continue going to stardom. And Walker Campbell has the world at his oyster. And there's a lot of other people who we're hoping to bring back like them who have not been on here yet. We've talked about them before, and we're hoping to bring them in here for the first time. And if people are wondering why I never have my other cousin on the show, well, it's simple. I do like, and I do believe in letting people kind of have their own ways, if that makes any sense. I don't want people to, kind of link both his stuff and my stuff together, because, even though I still respect my cousin for what he does, and I've helped him in the early days and doing different things. I've written some songs and so forth, lyrics, I should say. And he's talented in the musical world, and I love him. He's my family. He's blood. But as far as having him on the podcast, I just, don't want to rush that right away, because, I want to give other people a chance before I start bringing him on or things like that, if that makes any sense. But, but I always like having, up-and-coming musicians, up-and-coming fighters, up-and-coming actors on the show, because it's the future, man. And we have to make sure that we're inspiring others to continue the legacies when it's time for us to tap out, so to speak. One of the people we're waiting to hear and bringing back for the first time is Kip Brooks. Kip Brooks is the father of Jaden Brooks, go figure. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Kip Brooks, a very intelligent man, and also one hell of a dad. I again, when it comes to dads, I am drawn to also awesome fellow dads. He is one. Noah, the Nightmare Tyndall's dad, again, another one of my favorite people to deal with. Again, I get along with awesome dads. I get along with people in general in the F4L, so there's that. But Kip is an amazing individual who knows what it's like to be down, and also will credit the fact that his kids are his life and have also saved his life. I can understand that, and I respect that tremendously. And I can't wait to get Kip on this show to talk to you guys about it and what he has done. Kip Brooks is really the American dream soprano side. I really respect Kip, and I look forward to having him on the show. We are working on trying to find a time. It's just, he keeps on achieving all of his things and doing big things, and we're proud of him. But he is planning on coming on here, for the record. We are going to try to, fit around in June, so that way there we can, celebrate the fact that, again, real-life dads doing real-life things. And again, the fact that we know Jaden very well on this show, and also we're going to get, eventually we're going to get, both Lincoln and Jaden on. That ought to be interesting, too. Kip has done an amazing job raising two amazing young men, and they all should be proud of each other, because I believe, honestly, they all keep each other up. They inspire each other, and I think that was what keeps everyone going. So there's that. Hopefully they're doing good, and we can't wait to have Kip in for the first time. And as I said in the podcast when we had Jaden on, hopefully, Jaden can maybe give Kip some tips, because Jaden is our most visited guest on the show. He can give Kip some tips. Maybe Kip's a little shy. Jaden can hopefully give him some tips on helping him feel more at ease, hopefully. If that's what it is. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine anyway. Right, no, I agree. So, we look through the journey of all these amazing people and where they've come. Jaden Brooks is another person. He started out wanting to be a fitness guy, and now he's just like, you know what? I just want to be me. And he's an amazing person. Probably one of the smartest people, is one of the smartest people I have interacted with. No matter how old he is, he's one of the most intelligent young men you'll ever talk to, and I have nothing but respect for Jaden. He is another F4L brother, as his brother is, as his father is. So that's kind of where that is. Who else? We've had quite a few. I got to tell you, it's always nice to have fellow YouTubers on the show. Now, I talked about Walker Campbell, and yes, Jaden Brooks was on YouTube, and JoJo the Bodybuilders on YouTube. But what was really cool is having Mike from OK Thank You, and now back on List 25 on the show, to talk about kind of... you know what? I think he's been on the show now twice, now that I think about it. I believe Mike was on the show way back in the day talking about OK Thank You. And then he came back on to talk about Disney, I believe. So Mike's been on twice because he's a huge Disney, has huge knowledge on Disney and pop culture. Lives in, he puts Florida on the map. He has since returned back to List 25, and he's crushing it on there. We're so proud of Mike. OK Thank You came back for an episode. I don't know what's happening with that. He and Tristan, it's always good to see them, working together. They always crack me up. And also, again, I always respect fellow YouTubers. As someone who was on YouTube, I see myself as the unofficial welcoming committee for YouTube. So it's always good to see them doing their thing. And no matter if it's List 25 or OK Thank You, Mike is a very awesome human being. Tristan's one of my favorite people. I would love to get Tristan on the show. Mike's been on twice. I'd love to get Tristan on the show because he's a filmmaker. And as a fellow filmmaker, I'd love to have him on the show to talk about what that's like for him to be on the show. And, as a writer and a YouTuber and all the amazing things. Tristan also, fun fact, he also likes to fence. And I would love to hear about his Peter Pan adventures. I'm just kidding. No, but Tristan and Mike of OK Thank You, always good people, always amazing. Robin, who used to be part of that show, no longer part of OK Thank You, but we still respect Robin. We still love Robin too. And no, Robin never been on the show yet, but maybe, who knows, maybe someday. I'll tell you a YouTuber we would love to get on the show, who has not been on yet, but also, I understand too, it can be kind of interesting, and that, of course, is one of the best wrestlers on our roster. Of course, that is our friend from down under, Minty. Minty, who we've talked about on the show a lot, has not been on the show officially, podcast-wise, but we still watch Minty's videos on YouTube. We still, a lot of people who think just because you're on YouTube, you don't watch other people on YouTube. And that's a lie. I watch everybody. I give everyone a chance. I think it's interesting hearing people's opinions on certain things and different aspects. I do enjoy fellow film critics when they're honest, but I feel like sometimes when they change formulas or when they start to kind of say things that it feels like it's more like propaganda, where they want to be careful what they say, not to offend people, versus giving an honest opinion, or they feel like if they say or give a bad film review, they're going to get in trouble for it. I don't go by that. If I don't like a movie, I'm going to tell you I don't like the movie. I'll tell you why. And that's kind of how it works. I'll tell you why I like it or why I don't like it. It's happened where I've watched an absolute awful movie, but it's also happened where I've watched a decent movie. This segment right here where I'm talking about, celebrating the 3 years, one of the things I've been doing is film reviews. And I've always had the integrity to give you guys the honest feedback, and I break it into the 4 categories. The story and the plot, the casting, the location, the time period, and then the feeling at the end of the movie. That's how I judge every single movie. That's how I critic. That's how I look at everything. Another fun fact about me is I say this a lot, and this is actually a downfall. This is not a positive. This is more of an annoying and a negative thing. I can't just simply watch something to enjoy it. It can be a movie, it could be a television show, it could be a wrestling thing. It doesn't matter what it is. If I'm watching it, I am already studying it. I'm already picking it apart. I'm already analyzing it. I'm already breaking it down to be what it is. That's kind of what I do. That's what I do for everything. I break it down, and then I critique it. I do that for everything. So much so that I almost contemplated, doing a riff tracks kind of a thing. Would that work on the podcast? We'll have to figure that out. Or do that on YouTube again. Because you know what? I got to tell you, as someone who started out was part of the early days of YouTube, a lot of people probably forget a lot of the stuff I did on YouTube. And that's okay. Actually, I do know they forgot, because half the time when I bring it up to certain people, they are quick to say, well, what do you do there? Or they're quick to go to the wrestling stuff, the YouTube show, like the video game stuff. That's not how I started on YouTube. That's not why I was on YouTube. I started because I actually did wrestling. I did the promos on YouTube. And then I would do my public service announcements and all the other little things. I did montages and whatnot. That's kind of how I started on YouTube. And then, of course, the YouTube show I do with my son, because that's a father-son doing. That's an activity, and it's also probably some of the best work I've done, because I get to do it with my son. And that honestly means the world to me, is doing something that we share a passion for. We had a fun time putting those shows together, and it's evolved over the years. the fact that, here we are, he's going to be 21 in November, and he started when he was 11 again. He was home from school sick. And looking back at all those years, we could probably fill this show with just memories from the early days of the show and the progression of that. But, there's no one I enjoy, kind of calling actions with more so than him, because he has that blunt, like me. He says kind of how it is, and he has a tendency to be a little bit, stuck in his ways, so to speak. Like we still have the biggest debate about the Great Muta. Me being from the wrestling world, him being a kid of modern time who didn't grow up with the Great Muta. He doesn't see the greatness that is the Great Muta, and this is something that was kind of our ongoing, once in a while, thing right there. So much so that, the other day I was talking with him, and with Father's Day is coming up and all, once in a while, I got to keep in contact with him, and I was talking to him about, different things, and if we're being honest, work is kind of getting him. He's been, killing it at work all the time. And much like myself, my wife, he has inherited the fact that he's one of the most dependable people that they have. And like myself at the movie theater, he excels in that. And he is the most reliable person, which is why he works as much as he does. When I am into those fields, when I'm working in something like that, that tends to be what happens to me. So he inherited that from us, poor kid. But on the same sense, we're proud of him, because that means that his work, he has earned the respect of the management, and they acknowledge the fact that he is the best at what he does, and that's why he's the most reliable person. They know that they can count on him, and that's a good feeling that I'm not sure he even knows yet. But he'll learn eventually. But when we were talking the other day, we were already talking about this year's Hall of Fame class, the one that's coming up next year, the 2024 Jazz and Sons Dream Masters Hall of Fame. He's funny because he seems to think that one of his old characters should go into the Hall of Fame, the Indiana Shawn character, who probably people don't even remember Indiana Shawn. That was like a cowboy gimmick that he had. But because when we're talking about, I believe that this year will be this will be Chuck Norris's year to go into the Hall of Fame. That's what started that off. And that's when he decided that Indiana Shawn should go in the Hall of Fame. So we're going to have to debate about this, because usually it's going to be like one Dream Master, one Dream Warrior, Dream Master being the male, one Dream Warrior, which is a female, and then a tag team and a faction are the other two. And since his awesome ones are still in the show, the faction can't go in the Hall of Fame. He doesn't want to put Stan Lee in the Hall of Fame because he's not ready for him to retire, because, again, he's part of his group. He is the other half of the show, so he can't retire. So he's not going in the Hall of Fame, because basically when you're in the Hall of Fame, that means you're no longer going to be part of the show, because you've done all the things you've had to do. You're going to be referenced, and you're going to be acknowledged. You're going to be respected for the fact that you have contributed to the show. But as far as being an active person, part of the show on a regular basis, that's not a thing anymore. Facts. And sad to say, that's kind of how that works. Because if you've earned your spots, you've earned your spots. There's nothing more to prove. But Chuck Norris is someone who I think is going to be in the Hall of Fame for the Dream Masters next year. But he seems to think Indiana Shawn should. So we'll have to wait and find out what's going to go on there. Maybe we'll have to have an old poll and leave it up to the fans to decide who should go into the Hall of Fame. Indiana Shawn, which is a character people probably forgot about, or the American icon himself, the man of 1,000 jokes, Chuck Norris. We'll find out. But anyway, that's fun. So, again, over the years, we've had multiple guests on the show. We've had a lot of laughs on the show. You know, I don't think I've ever gotten sad on the show. I mean, I think I've had some heartbreak. Yes, I did. I had some heartbreaking moments. Almost got sad. I mean, I do get sad. Here's the fact. I got to tell you guys the truth here. Well, I always tell you the truth anyway. But when it comes to me, a lot of people viewed me to be someone who is my family knows me as a stone, as they call me, because I don't cry. Excuse me, hold on 1 second. I drink water again. All honesty, I haven't cried a single tear since I was 10 years old. And I don't know what that is about. Maybe it has to do with the PTSD, which is one of the side effects of that. Or maybe it's just because I don't have any more tears left in my eyes. I don't know. But, when it comes to films, television, or sadness, I can feel sadness, and I feel sorrow, I feel remorse, but I don't cry. It's more of a, I'll tell you how I'm feeling. If I'm honest, I'll tell you if I'm sad. When it comes to death and saying goodbye and things like that, it's the same thing. I don't cry over those things. I don't have the ability. In all honesty, if you're going to look from, the time I was 10 till now, in that time period, I've buried a son. I've buried a girlfriend that I was going to marry. I've buried my mother, my grandmother, pretty much almost all of the original F4L. Buddies of mine in the wrestling world. Buddies in the filmmaking world. Buddies in the human services field. So I've said goodbye to a lot of people over the years, but I've never, I don't cry. I just don't have that ability. So, yep, that's the thing. That's the thing there. So, you guys might hear noises as my wife is walking in. She was at a party all day, as she deserves, to have fun with her friends. At school, as again, my wife is an amazing veteran, and she got to hang around with other former veterans who she started with over the years, so they went to a party. And I'm going to probably cut the show a little bit so I can talk to her, because I haven't seen her all day. But we're going to continue just finishing up the show, since it's been a little while since I've done one, so I want to make that up to you guys. So, bear with me. Thank you very much. So, that's kind of how that works. What was I going to say next? Yeah, so like I said, it was always good to have Walker Campbell and JoJo the Bodybuilder and JoJo Sebastian and Phil Ricardo Jr. And you know what's interesting? We always get the same feedback whenever they're going to be on the show. I just barely said their names. Relax. Excuse me. Relax. Easy, guys. Girls. Ladies. Ladies. Easy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, goodness me. That was my bad. Sorry, folks. That's what I get whenever I mention their names on social media when I announce who's coming on the show. That's generally the reaction I get when I announce they're coming on. I don't know why that is. But, sometimes I'll announce people, I don't know. It's interesting like that. I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. Yeah, that's what you should do. You should accept with all these people. Excuse me, calm down. Calm down, it's okay. All right, cool. Got to control the audience here. People are everywhere, and they enjoy watching our shows. It is always delightful. All right, folks. So, it's been 3 years since we've been doing this show. It has been an amazing journey, and we are going on more stronger. And this year, we're going to even propel even more, because we're going to open the doors to the F4L Headquarters Podcast and invite people back, and also invite new people in, more importantly. And, we talked about all of the amazing people who've already been on the show. How about we talk about some of the people who we'd love to get on the show with the invite? So, let's now go to that segment where we're going to find out who should come to the headquarters. Guys, take it away. next segment, we're going to be talking about the future of the F4L Headquarters Podcast. We've talked about the people who have kind of helped make the show what it is and all the amazing people we're going to be having coming back. But how about we talk about those new people? People who are going to be coming new to the headquarters. People we're trying to bring. People like Gus Jeffries, for example. Oh, here we go again. Ladies, excuse me. Ladies, excuse me. Calm down. I just said, relax. Excuse me. Calm down. Oh my goodness. Ladies, easy. Oh boy, see people? This is what happens. Gus Jeffries, who is a young up-and-coming musician, who, by the way, he's going to have his first single is going to be released on Spotify and whatnot. I do suggest you guys check it out when it comes available. Of course, you know I'm going to be there. You know I'm going to respect it. You know I'm going to be the one that I'm going to definitely be listening to it. I think that he is going to be an amazing individual. He is an amazing person. He's an amazing young musician, is Gus. Very talentedly gifted. In all honesty, he is someone also I can see being part of that music festival down the road is Gus Jeffers, whose first hit, his first single is going to be coming out. It's called True Love, and it's going to be, you can reserve it now. So when it comes available, his first hit's going to be out there called True Love. He's an amazing young man. I do recommend it. Check it out. He'll be on here eventually. We're working on it. And whatnot. We're also trying to get some of these new breeded fitness people on the show. Hopefully some of them get there. Who are these new fitness people? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if you've heard of these people. Maybe perhaps you've heard of Isaiah Woods. Oh, here we go again. Oh, my goodness. That was a quick one, so I guess only a few people knew. But Isaiah Woods is someone who is learning a lot about the being healthy and working out and whatnot. He's another individual who we've invited on the show eventually. Another person is, 1 second, pull up this thing's healthy people, because only the best for you guys. Only. Yeah, again, Isaiah Woods is someone who you're going to see eventually. Isaiah Woods, you guys should check out. Excuse me. Oh, here we go again. Or perhaps you've heard of Eli Schaefer? Eli Schaefer? Oh, easy. Oh my goodness, this is what I get for mentioning anyone to anyone. But how about some people you may not know, like the new breed? Like, how about David? You guys know David from YouTube and Instagram? Okay, ladies, come on. This is what I get. Goodness me. All right, now, calm down now. Listen, you're going to give these young men a heart attack because they're busy working hard and they don't, they got to focus on what they got to focus on, man. Come on now. But anyway, some of the hardest working young men you'll ever meet currently. Yep, so you guys should check them out. Let me tell you about someone else you might want to hear about. What about someone in the music world? And the difference to Gus Jeffers, what about Jasper McDonald? Oh my goodness. Okay. I guess you people like him. All right. And you guys obviously want Noah the Nightmare Tyndall back here too, right? Well, that's everyone likes them. All right. Everyone likes Noah. All right. You're going to give Noah a complex. All right. Calm down now. And another person I can tell you that we're trying to bring on to this podcast for the first time, who is new to our YouTube show, is Elijah Furton. Oh, everyone likes him too, I guess. Goodness me. Easy, guys. Easy. Well, we're trying to get him on there as he's done an amazing job and whatnot. And we hope nothing but the best. And we hope he comes back on here. And also, we've talked about them before on the show. And, I got to tell you, if I was going to cast a film or some type of production, I think, for certain, I would want to do something that hasn't been done yet. I don't know why it hasn't been done yet, but I would want to bring the cousins on the show. What cousins? I'm talking about Christopher and Christian Goodwin. Christopher and Christian Convery. Easy. All right, guys. Easy. Come on. You guys are something else, man. Relax. Oh boy, I'm telling you. And of course, another person who you guys probably want to meet, since you know them, you want to hear from. You guys probably want to hear from Jax too, huh? Oh my goodness. Jax, of course, is another fitness guy. Well, easy. Ladies, control yourself. All of you, control yourselves. Excuse me, self-control. Hello? Oh, yeah. I'm telling you. You say a person's name and they go nuts. What are you supposed to do? That's like, I don't know. Anyway. That was interesting. I say a few people's names and everyone goes nuts. Let's try this. What if I was to bring, I don't know, CM Punk on the show? You laugh now. I'll get him on the show. You'll see. Old friend of mine. And, I'm wondering, if people are ever wondering why it is I come from the wrestling world, yet I haven't had a wrestler on the show yet. Well, they're simple, because, you really can't have more than one personality on one show. Yeah, see, they know. They get it all too well. So, there's that. I can tell you this also. We're also planning on coming back to the show, a person, well, let's give a hint. This person is going to hopefully be doing their TV show based on their school, as class will be in session, as we hope nothing but the best for author Richard M. Bourne in his Hellman Elementary series that hopefully will be on Netflix soon. We wish them nothing but the best of luck in doing so. What we've never had on the show, and we should have some more sports. What if we would have people who do bowling on the show? Yeah, bowling. Okay. Well, I guess that's why, because they just want to bowl. Anyway, that's what you get for, inviting a bunch of rockin' bowlers. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for massaging my dad jokes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyway, that's kind of how that works. But I'm also but in all fairness, in all honesty, I am going to attempt to get some of my fellow wrestling buddies over the years. I've had also some of my horror fan buddies as well. As over my years, I've had quite a few awesome people in the lifetime, and I've got the awesome privilege to meet some of the best names in Hollywood and film. But also in the podcasting world, there are also people like, I don't know, Pod Meets World. There's no joke there. They are fantastic at what they do. We love Pod Meets World, and Ryder Strong, Will Friedle, and Danielle Fishel, who are lifelong friends, some of the most down-to-earth celebrities out there who have a vast knowledge on both film, making television, being part of one of the biggest shows ever. What show, of course? Boy Meets World. Right. William, and it's always crazy. So, the stars of Pod Meets World, of course, are, of course, Danielle Fishel. Indeed. And, of course, Will Friedle. And Ryder Strong. Oh, you're going to give Ryder a complex, too. He's trying to forget about all that stuff back in the day. You know what I got to tell you, though? Stop it, ladies. Come on. Anyway, what I got to tell you is that, as someone who does a podcast, I listen to other podcasts as well. I'm not ashamed to admit that, or I'm not ashamed to also say that some podcasts are amazing. I would love to get I would love to get the girls from Talk Scary to Me on the show. Why? For those people who don't know, do you guys know? Hold on, let's give you guys a clue. Danielle Harris, the amazing actress from pretty much any of the horror movies that can feature a BA women in there. Danielle Harris, who of course would first start out introduced to the world from her role as Jamie Lloyd in the Halloween 4 and 5 series. Amazing job in both. And then she would go on to become part of the Rob Zombie's Halloween series, which I'm going to be honest with you, I know this is going to be controversial. I know people I go to heavy debates with over there, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. Don't get me wrong. I respect John Carpenter for what he started. I respect that tremendously. But for me, being the me and how I look at movies, I feel the Rob Zombie version of Halloween is better than the original series. I know, you guys are amazed by that. I know you might feel that that's shocking, but it's honestly true. I like to know more about why someone's the way they are. I don't like having to just have everything up in the air because none of it made sense when you really think about it. Was it scary? Sure, but it would be more scary knowing what happens there. I like the Rob Zombie's version of Halloween better because it did a better story telling the background. How does one become an entity known as Michael Myers? By the way, Tyler Mane, hands down one of the best Michael Myerses out there. Tyler Mane, by the way, also a Hall of Famer, along with Kane Hodder, the person we acknowledge as Jason Voorhees, and of course, Robert Englund himself, the one and only Freddy Krueger, are all people who were part of our first class of our Hall of Fame because of their iconic roles. There you go. Don't get me wrong, love James Jude Courtney. He did a great job portraying Myers, portraying, Michael Myers in one of the recent movies. But, I really feel like the Rob Zombie's Halloween and definitely does a better story. Maybe not the second one, but the first one definitely does a better story in telling you how Michael Myers would become part of what he is. In all honesty, the amazing acting job by Scout Taylor Compton and Danielle Harris in Part 2 deserved an Oscar on their own right. They're two of the most hardest working, dedicated actresses in their genre. They deserve so many more acting jobs than they get. And I'm not just saying that because Danielle Harris predicted that I would meet the wife that I would meet someday. Which, again, I'm going to sort of have to get her on the show to ask her about that. How many other people she has predicted that their relationship was going to happen. But one of the things I respect about them is the fact that they're so open and honest about their passion for the conventions and what they mean for them. I respect them tremendously for the human beings that they are. I listen to their podcast. I love their honesty. I got to tell you, I personally would never run my show like they do. I would probably never have them, I would love them to be themselves on my show, of course, but I would never be intrusive to ask them such questions that they have on their show. Let's put it that way. I love their pod. If you are an adult audience, do go check out the Talk Scared to Me podcast. You will not be disappointed in that. As far as other podcasters go, I would love to collaborate with other podcasters because, there's Pod Meets World. Again, having Danielle Harris on the show, okay, easy there, or Will Friedle, or Ryder Strong would be great on the show because, it'd be great to, talk about their time, but also acknowledge them for being an amazing podcast and being storytellers in their own right. I personally love hearing backstories of how things come. That's something I enjoy as someone who went to film school. I'm the first to admit I'm the guy who watches the special features to find out how the movie was made. I watch that. I watch the commentary because I want to hear the backstories. When I go to the Hall of Fame ceremonies, I want to hear the stories of where they became part of. That's stuff that's interesting to me. But that's also why my knowledge goes beyond my years in certain elements, because I'm not afraid to listen and dig and learning something new. That's something that a lot of people have a hard time with sometimes. They think that they get to the level where they don't need to learn anything new. They don't need to be exposed to something outside of their own comfort zone. I disagree with that. I think you need to be open to learning something new, even as knowledgeable as you think you are. For me, for example, I know a lot about pro wrestling. It's been part of something that's been part of my life for 25 years as of today. Crazy when you think about that. But on top of that, right, I go beyond that years because I love listening to the stories and the guys in the locker room. I like listening to the road stories, the back stories, how things came to be, how they were. Where the wrestling business has been, I'll be the first to admit, I don't like a lot of the new stuff. I know, again, that's controversial, which is probably why I won't have any of these new breed people on the show. I'm more likely to have people who have been around the block a few times, who I've known over the years. And I have quite a few friends in the wrestling business still, and I respect them all, both in the independent world and in the big world. I don't forget where I came from. I don't forget how I became who I am, but I also am not shy from saying that I'm always learning something new that I didn't know before, and I'm open to those things. Filming is the same thing. I like to learn about the stories of film, the history of certain things. So, when it comes to stupid human trivia, that's me. That's why I get to be so good at those things, because I'm a sponge for those things. Excuse me. I am coughing because I'm talking and I'm not drinking enough water in between sips. And it says the guy that used to have a talk show in the middle of a ring in front of a live audience. But I'll tell you, that's a lot quicker than what this is. Excuse me. For those people who've ever wondered, you know, what my stance is on drinking, drugging, smoking, whatnot, you've probably never heard the podcast then, because I've said that multiple times. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. The closest thing to hardcore drinking I get is coffee, tea, and if I'm in a really good mood, and if I'm really wanting to unwind, and I really, really, really want to, be one of the people out there and have a good time, let my hair down, I will sometimes have a soda, but it's not often. I enjoy water, coffee, juice. For the most part, water is pretty much it. Juice, coffee, tea, things of that nature. A lot more water than you think. But that's kind of how that works. And that's kind of who I am, and that's kind of what that's all about. But we are excited for those new ventures and all of the other things. So let's get ready now for our last segment. We talked about some of the people. We have those invitations out there for all those people I mentioned. But I'm also going to, extend that beyond. We've been trying to get Jackson R. Scott to be part of this show as well. And he will be part of the show. And that's exactly what's going to happen. He's one of the funniest, naturally funny people I know. It was great having him. I love his dad, another one of the finest people out there. We're working on that. Eventually that'll happen somewhere down the road. But we're going to open the thing out there and get a few other people, like Dave Hagen. I'm just kidding. Dave Hagen will be back eventually. That's kind of the ongoing joke of the show. We've been trying to get Dave Hagen back on the show since the early days of this podcast. Dave Hagen, technically speaking, was the very first guest ever on the F4L Headquarters Podcast. Like ever. When I started, it was a learning curve. Unfortunately, I was going on a trade. But it was so good to have Dave on the show. I wish the audio was better and the system was better, but, trial and error. I would love for Dave to come back on the show so we could make up for that show. But I can tell you someone else we're hoping to get back on the show eventually, and of course that is Corey Feldman. Easy. I'm not going to let you guys scream a lot. Corey Feldman is someone who I just found out I was going to be at Monster Mania, which I work for Monster Mania, so it'll be great to see him there. But Corey Feldman is someone who has a vast knowledge of all kinds of things. I love what he does to help others. Those people who are familiar with Corey Feldman's story and what he talks about, we fully support what Corey Feldman does. We love that he calls people out for being creeps. We support the fact that he is protective of the people in the industry who are, the young people, I should say, in the industry who are, he blew the roof off of that. He shed the light on it, and we thank him for that. Corey Feldman is also one of the most talented, gifted people on the planet, and one of the nicest. I can't wait to bring him on the show. You know who else we might have on the show soon? What about David Arquette? Why are you laughing? David Arquette would be a great guest. Also, another good guest is a former friend of mine from the old days. What about the old Dane Train? I think that'd be fun, having Dane Train there. Yeah. So first and foremost, we're getting ready to wrap up here. As like I said, my wife got home from her party. We're proud of her for that. So there's that. So let's give her a round of applause. This is for my wife and all of the amazing veterans who sacrifice their time to help the country and do what they're going to do. Congratulations. Thank you. I know they acknowledge it, everything that they do. Okay, enough. My wife is appreciative, trust me. Okay, so we're going to get ready to go to our final segment where I'm going to give you a short film review. Get ready. Guys, take it away. Some people have, co-hosts like a Kevin Eubanks, if you were Jay Leno back in the day, or Andy Richter, if you were Conan O'Brien. I have a bunch of talking, singing ants. Go figure. All right, folks. Let's do a film review. Last week, I reviewed this fine classic. All right. You know what? I can't tell you enough. That's a great tune. I know it's iconic, and I know I'm old, but that's still something you can hear, and it takes you back to those times. I'm going to give you one film review. Just one. Because I've only watched one film recently. All the way through. Hints of my life. My wife. This is going to be another controversial film review, folks, and this is going to be something that a lot of people are like, what? What do you mean? Well, no, I'm going to break it down for you, and I'm going to tell you why. Let me drink my water first. All right. It's because of the honesty that I have, and the respect that I have, and the integrity I have why I give this feedback. This is my personal opinion, but also my wife's opinion. We watched the movie together with high anticipation, with high regards, giving it the same kind of view. I want to say first and foremost, I want to debunk something. A lot of people might think that my wife and I agree a lot about every movie we see. That is very much not true at all. Yeah, I'm straight it is. We don't agree upon a lot of movies. There are some films I really enjoy that she doesn't, and there's a lot of things that she enjoys that I'm one and done. I can't do it again. My wife is someone who will watch the same kind of movie over and over again. I like to give newer movies a chance. But one of the things we both do is when we hear about certain things and we watch a movie, if a movie kind of has and shares, if we have the same feelings about the same movie, I have a firm belief in this. If you hear the same thing about the same, whatever the item may be, it can't be 100% wrong. There has to be some truth to it. That's people of things. If you hear the same story more than once from multiple sources, it can't be too far from the truth. But we can only go by the two of us. And I got to tell you, in the last year, we've been catching up on films. And, in the Oscar race, there are always films that get, awarded. And a lot of people who are film critics, quote, unquote, they give praises to things. Almost like, if they say nice things about this movie, maybe they'll get, like, an extra view or a like. I'm going to be honest with you guys because my respect is for you guys. I don't want to see you guys... I feel like my integrity is at stake, and I want to be honest with you guys. I'm not going to candy coat things, nor am I going to give you a review that's going to be impacted by how someone else views it. So, again, this is a solo review, but I'm going to break it down for you like this. And it might be confusing because certain parts are good. Okay, there's only two things that are good, but... Okay, let's break it down. Let's talk about the movie, The Elephant in the Room. No, that's not the name of the movie. That's just what I'm talking about. So the movie is called, and I know this is going to get like, oh my goodness, there's no way you're going to talk about this movie in a nasty way. You're wrong. All right, so I got to tell you guys this. There are two things. My wife and I watched the same movie. Okay, so we're going to talk about the movie that won. Hold on, I'm going to tell you. Let me tell you what it won, first of all. I'm going to be, again. And actually, when I give you these hints, you know what it is. All right. This won 7 Oscar wins. Do you understand that? 7 Oscars. Are you kidding me? 7 Oscars. I'm going to break it down for you, the Oscars that were nominated for. And again, when I say this, again, this is my own personal reflection, my opinion, but also my wife agreed with a lot of the things. We agreed the same. So, listen to this. It won Best Original Screenplay, Daniel Kwan. It won Best Achievement in Directing. It won Best Motion Picture of the Year. It got nominated for Achievement in Music. And it got nominated for Music and Writing and so forth. Oh no, there's 6 more for just the Oscars. Okay. Best Performance in a Leading Role, Michelle Yeoh. Warranted, Granted, Agree. Winner in a Supporting Role, Jamie Lee Curtis. Winner, Best Performer in a Supporting Role, Ki Han Kwan. Warranted, and I agree. And Best Achievement in Film Editing, Paul Rogers. What movie am I talking about? You guessed it. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. 2023's Oscar-winning movie. All of those things I just said are nominated or has won. And my wife and I agreed upon a lot. 1, completely overrated. I want to point out that there was nothing in this film that I could easily understand, that I could follow easily as a... Now, I want to point out, I've been to filmmaking, I went to film school, and I do enjoy art house kind of films. I do enjoy foreign films. I understand all of those concepts. This film jumps all over the place. The overall tone and undertone for the film is completely way longer than it needs to be. I believe that Jamie Lee Curtis should not have gotten, not only not have gotten nominated, but I also feel was wrongfully awarded. I know that's controversial. It's Jamie Lee Curtis. How dare you? Well, no, listen. Jamie Lee Curtis, was in the film. But if you want my opinion, Michelle Yeoh absolutely deserved an award. She held that movie together for whatever it was. But Stephanie Hsu, who was nominated, who I believe she was nominated against Jamie Lee Curtis, she absolutely should have not only been nominated, but if Jamie Lee Curtis won, then she should have won. Jamie Lee Curtis's role in this film was throwaway. I'm sorry to tell you guys that. Her character was not needed. She didn't do anything over-the-top fantastic. Stephanie Hsu held her part of the movie up quite a bit, did an amazing job. Michelle Yeoh, everything fell on her, and Ki Hao Kwan, who you guys might remember as Data from Indiana Jones, or... No, he wasn't Data in Indiana Jones. He was Data in the Goonies, and he was Short Stuff in Indiana Jones. Ki Han Kwan absolutely deserved an award. He did a great job. He was everywhere in this movie, literally. He did a great job. He was all over the place. Some parts he had to be tough. Some parts he had to be weak. Did a great job. Michelle Yeoh, she had to hold this movie together, whatever it was. But Stephanie Hsu did an amazing job in this film. Jamie Lee Curtis barely was in the film. Didn't do anything outstanding in this film. Here and there, little thing. Why? Because Stephanie Hsu got robbed, in my opinion. The film itself is overrated, if I'm being honest. I know. How can you say that about this film? No. Because I'm honest. That's why. I'm not going to candy coat things or tell you things that aren't accurate. It's all over the place. It doesn't have... And it says it's everything all where, all at once. But there's really... makes no sense. There's no... You don't know where the beginning, the middle, and the end is. You don't know what reality is and what's real and what's not in the movie. You can't follow any of that. Is this a sci-fi? Is it drama? Is it horror? Is it supposed to be comedy? None of it's really fantastic. I don't find any of it funny. It's listed as an action-adventure comedy. Sci-fi is not listed there, but sci-fi is probably the best thing to it. I would say closest to sci-fi than all of the other things. I don't find the movie incredibly funny. I think heartbreaking at points. The overall tone for what you're supposed to go for in this film, you could have summed that up in a lot easier than 2 hours and 19 minutes, which seemed longer, folks. We started this movie, we watched it. We had no idea just how long of a movie it was. Towards like the middle, close to the end, I was like, how much more of this movie is there? It dragged. There was a lot of useless kind of scenes. Dialogue that didn't need to be there. Scenage that didn't need to be there. For the overall ending of the movie, which went nowhere, didn't make any sense. This is probably the most cruelest review out there. But it's also one of the most honest reviews. Everyone talks about how great this movie is. Everyone talks about the amazing story and the arc. No. If you could follow this movie, then you must have, I don't know, something more so than in a lot of people I do. My wife and I are two different people who have different movie tastes. Neither one of us liked this film. We thought it was overrated. We did enjoy the best act. We did enjoy Hao Quan. We enjoyed Data's performance. We enjoyed Michelle's performance. Everyone else is throwaway. We also feel that the girl who didn't get nominated, I think she was nominated but lost to Jamie Lee Curtis, got robbed. Honestly, Jamie Lee Curtis in this film added nothing to the dialogue, nothing to the story arc. That could have been anybody, anything. I think she got this award because she's never had one, maybe? Or maybe because they felt bad. I don't know. Maybe because the film won all these awards, and since two people who are Asian already won, they needed to give it to at least one white person who worked on the film. I know that's controversial, right? But is it true? Because, all honesty, the other girl did an amazing job for what she had to do, and she had to go all over the place to do her role. Jamie Lee Curtis barely was in this film. And when she was, it wasn't anything over the top. I could have probably given her a better chance at winning an Oscar for her role as reprising a role as from Halloween, the last Halloween, which was, people thought was great, I thought was bad. My wife wouldn't watch it, so there's that. But my wife and I both agreed it was an overrated movie. We didn't think it was as great as people thought it was going to be. We had anticipation. My wife had even said she was really hoping this movie would be good. She expected it to be fantastic based upon what it was all about and all of the people and all the accolades. We both watched it, scratching our heads. My wife doesn't like a lot of sci-fi movies, and that's basically what the movie was. And I think it was just 2 hours of 19 minutes that could have been summed up probably in an hour and 15 minutes. With the same ending, take out half of the stuff that doesn't need to be there, which is a lot of it. There's a lot of confusing parts to it, a lot of things that just... again, why did this film win? And then it was up against The Whale and, Banshees, with Colin Farrell. I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch the other movies that were nominated against it. And I can't wait, because if this movie was better, they're claiming this movie is better than those ones. That has me to believe, well, does that mean these ones weren't as good either, and this is the best out of the whole three? We're going to explore that, and I'm going to let you guys know on another episode. Not now, but later. Not today. As I'm always adding. And also, I am recently catching up on the Creed series, which I'm a little bit behind for, I'll be honest with you guys. But I'm going to give you those reviews when I get those as well. As of right now, I've been at this for a little while, folks. So first I'm going to do this because it's awesome. That's going to call it in for that. And guys, I want to say again, thank you guys for 3 years for all those people who have taken time to be on the show, for all those people who consider being on the show, for all those people who think about, maybe we should. To all those people who said, no, we don't want to come on the show, hey, that's your choice. That's okay. It's not for everybody. And to everyone out there who we'd love to get on the show, like the Adeles, we hope that someday they'll be on the show as well. And it's always open door policy. We can't wait to bring our old friends back and welcome our new friends, our new brothers to the F4L, and sisters to the F4L headquarters. I am your host, the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens, saying, may all your dreams come true from the F4L Headquarters Podcast. Thank you very much.